All right, what's up, everybody? So today I want to talk about the topic of bear mode. So bear mode is something that I believe led to me having pretty good success with hypertrophy training and building muscle, especially in my younger years. Stumbling upon Alex Leonidas, his former channel being Alpha Destiny back in the day when I first started lifting, it was kind of a hidden gem, and it was really the only channel that genuinely resonated with me at the time. That philosophy of embracing bear mode and bulking up, it finally clicked, and I had somebody that kind of spoke what I wanted to actually do. Going into bodybuilding, getting into this whole like fitness industry, I never really lost sight of that, at least at first. I was always happy to be bulked up, and I saw all these influencers and all these people that were always shredded all the time, and I never really desired that look. And I want to talk a little bit about that today, but to bring it back to bear mode, it was something that I was like, this is somebody that actually understands lifting and the goal of becoming bigger and building muscle. And I think that it's sad to see that the industry hasn't really changed that much over the years, and that it's 2023 now, and I've been here for 7 years, not on this channel, but lifting and in the industry, generally speaking, for 7 years. And people are still just as obsessed with being shredded all the time. And it's kind of sad to see, because I genuinely don't think that's what people are out to get. I don't think people decide out of the blue they internally feel this desire to be shredded. I think people want to build muscle and get bigger, yet all the biggest influencers are people that are constantly shredded to promote their own business. And I think ultimately that's what it comes down to. And it's sad to see. So I'll always fight against that. And it's something that I don't think I've done a good enough job of myself with having this channel. I have a platform to talk about these ideas. I talk about good ideas of training, in my opinion, at least, but I think when it comes to something like bear mode and bulking and actually getting big and putting on muscle, I think that's something that should excite all of us, and it's something that the industry just fumbled, to be straightforward, and it's kind of sad to see. So bear mode, for anybody that's not familiar with this philosophy, and this isn't exclusive to Alex Leonidas, it's basically just referring to keeping your body fat percentage range a little bit higher than the industry standard. I think a lot of people are focused on being sub 15%, which to me is nuts. I really can't wrap my head around desiring to be that, unless you're just, maybe you're suffering from body dysmorphia, or maybe that is your genuine goal, and that's totally fine. Or maybe you're just almost like brainwashed in a way to follow these industry standards. But I don't think these industry standards are what people actually want. And I know that sounds crazy to say, and that's a big claim for me to make, but I genuinely do think that. And I can't wait for a potential trend of this bear mode thing to come back and maybe prove my point right. You never know. So that's why I'm saying it here. So when it comes to bear mode, it's basically just keeping your body fat percentage, like I said, a little bit higher. This can be anything from 16, 17%, maybe that low. That's probably the lowest I'd classify as bear mode, and even then, that's pretty damn lean. I would say up to maybe 22, 24% body fat. And I think the more muscle you have, the better that higher percent is going to look on you, because your fat just has more places to go, and you have that much more of a base of muscle to make that distribution look even better. And anecdotally, I think a lot of us can attest to the idea that the people that have more muscle just somehow get better body fat distribution. I am in no desire to try and explain that or even research that, because I simply don't care, because there's nothing you can really do about it aside from put on muscle. But I don't think it's an outrageous claim to say the people that are more jacked can have the same body fat percentage as someone that doesn't have that much muscle, and it just looks that much better. It just makes their muscles appear that much bigger. So to get back to a point I talked about earlier, is your desire to be shredded an original goal you had, or did it become a goal after spending time in the fitness industry? And this is a bold claim, because I don't know everybody. There's no way for me to take a mass poll on this to be solid in this answer. But I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, and truthfully think that most people that enter the fitness industry come in because they want to be big, and then they get switched. The industry switches them, and they make these guys want to be shredded in sub 15% body fat 24/7. I genuinely don't think that's most people's natural desire. I do not believe that for a second. I really don't. So what I'd want to ask you is being shredded a genuine goal that you personally had before entering the fitness industry? And be honest with yourself. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. It's super interesting to me. I would love to hear what you guys have to say and have a little conversation on that. Or was your goal just to build muscle and get jacked, and you didn't really care about shreds that much? Just answer that question to yourself, try and be honest. And when you really figure out what you genuinely want, the sway of the trends of the fitness industry just has such a minor, like non-existent pull on what you actually want. Because we see this all the time with any trend, whether it's training or body fat percentages or whatnot, everybody kind of follows the trend. And the key with that is it's a trend, so it's not what you want. You're just following what other people do. And when you can separate yourself from that, you can say, all right, well, I'm going to go in my own path over here, and then maybe the trend will come to me one day, and I can just kind of be ahead of everybody else, and I've been doing what I wanted the whole time, and maybe I can persuade people to actually stay in that if it's what they truly want. So when it comes to bulking and entering bear mode, the way I see it is there's two magnets. There's these two big emotional pulls that people face. And a lot of the time people lose this battle. So there's going to be one over here, which is the emotional pull of the fear of fat gain. There's also another magnet on the other side. That's the excitement of muscle gain. A lot of the time, the fear of fat gain is what outweighs the excitement of muscle gain, and people steer clear of bulking. They get magnetically pulled towards this other side, and they spin their wheels for years. I mean, it's honestly sad because I feel like it's getting worse than it was even 7-10 years ago or whatever, which sucks, honestly. So part of the reason why I'm making this video. But I'd say when it comes to that mindset of the fear of fat gain, the way I see it is you have to look at it logically because you're feeling an emotion. So logic can override emotion in certain cases. And I think this is a perfect example of that. When you gain muscle, you are probably going to gain fat with it, especially if you're doing it properly. There's always going to be a little bit. If you're gaining a bunch of fat, you're not bulking properly. Learn the basics first is what I'd say. But when it comes to bulking properly, you are going to gain some fat with it. And this is where the logic can actually win this argument of this emotional pull to either side that you have in your head. When it's a situation like you built muscle and you gained fat. Let's say you bulked up 15 pounds, you gained 7.5 pounds muscle, 7.5 pounds of fat. It doesn't work like that. I know there's more factors in it, but just to keep it simple, let's say it's that. The muscle will stay permanently as long as you want to. Maintaining muscle is absurdly easy, so it's basically permanent. The fat gain, let's look at it logically. So again, 7.5 pounds of fat can be lost in a couple weeks. Like you can lose a pound of fat in 3 days just from being at 1,000 calorie or just above deficit. Maybe you have to sleep an extra night and it's gone by the morning of the 4th day. Look at that logically, guys. You can lose so much fat so easily and so quickly. You just get it off real quick. It's a little reset. The mindset that you guys have is you're too focused on the now. You're blinded by the present. You can't see the future. What you have to do is zoom out, just take a step back, look at the bigger picture. Even if you go 10 pounds above your bulking target and you have 10 pounds of fat that you don't want, you can lose that so easily. Like I said, in a week, you can lose 2 pounds. Just shed it off real quick and it's gone, and the muscle sticks around. So I don't get the fear to bulk, and I do get it, so I don't want you to misunderstand my words, but what I'm trying to say is you guys are too focused on the emotions and you're not taking a step back and looking at it logically. Fat can be easily lost and the muscle sticks around forever. The more muscle you have, the better your fat looks. So you might even be inclined to stay at a higher body fat percentage and not focus on losing all of the fat that you gained and actually kind of rock that bear mode look, which is what I've been talking about all video. So when it comes to actually looking muscular in day-to-day life, a lot of these influencers, that's literally what they're called. They're called influencers, to influence your mindset and influence your approach to training, which is a little bit ridiculous in my opinion when you truly think about it and say it out loud. These guys that are shredded, the natural ones, do not look jacked when they don't have a pump and they don't have their perfect camera in the perfect lighting, and I promise you that. They really don't. Any true late intermediate or advanced natural lifter can also agree with that, and I'm sure basically everybody does. And this isn't to be pessimistic and say, oh, it's big, shredded, and natural, you can only pick 2. Like, I think that's kind of stupid too. But at the same time, even like the top, like jackedest of the most jacked natural lifters, they don't look that big when they're that shredded. When they're wearing a t-shirt, like even like the biggest guys just don't look that impressive. And of course it's impressive in its own way. But if you want to look big and look muscular, which going back to my first point, I'd say that's what most people actually want, you really don't want to be in that body fat percentage range because there's a couple reasons. So with your muscles, a lot of it's water, which is not a bad thing. It's still a muscle. It's still part of your muscle. That's part of the makeup of muscle. But when you look at something like being in a deficit versus being in a surplus versus being in maintenance, a lot of people will say, oh, you don't actually have that muscle when you're on a bulk or in a surplus because it's just that extra bloat. Well, okay, if the muscle wasn't there, then the bloat would have nowhere to go. So the bloat's only there because you actually have muscle. And it's a classic case of myself. It's why I look decently big, is because I'm in a little bit of a surplus and I'm filled out and I'm bulked up a little bit. So I'm not going to say I look bigger than I am because I think that's a weird thing to say. But at the same time, when I'm cutting, not only do I lose that extra little bit of weight gain, that water weight, that bloat, to put it simply, when I'm in a deficit and I'm always trying to stay lean and I'm afraid of gaining fat, I lose that extra bloat. And since I'm in a deficit, I lose even more and I artificially have less than I actually should have. So my muscles are even smaller than they like truly are, quote unquote. And that's like the huge advantage that you can have as a natural lifter. I'm telling you guys, it's when you take these PED users, so these guys that are like quote unquote enhanced lifters, the drugs can help you maintain that bloat and kind of maintain that water weight when you're in a deficit. So that's something to keep in mind. And when you're natural, you can do the same thing. You just can't really be in that deficit. And that's not to say you can't be big and lean, as I mentioned earlier, but it's kind of like a secret that nobody is willing to take advantage of. And that's something that I've tried to do, and it works. It's worked in my favor, and I think I look pretty good. I think I look pretty big, and I think a lot of you guys would agree with that. So I think that's a huge advantage that naturals have. You can just have that same fullness and same bloat, but instead of injecting drugs, you just eat a little more. And if you're a foodie, unlike myself, you can actually enjoy that too, rather than force feeding. But to move on to my next point, proper permabulking, and I know that's kind of a memed term, but permabulking is actually a viable option, but nobody knows how to bulk properly. So when you're permabulking, this is like a variation of what I do, because even since having my channel, it's been a year and a half or so, I've only done one cut, and it was for 5 weeks. In my entire career of lifting, which is 7 years now, I've only cut 2 times. I cut back in 2019 where I just got shredded. I was probably 11% body fat, which is a classic case of me saying, oh, everyone else is shredded, let me do the same, so I look good on Instagram, and I looked tiny in clothes. And I did one other mini cut earlier this year just so I could continue bulking. For a situation like that I'm in myself, the reason it works is because I bulk properly. The amount of times that I hear people ask me, oh, should I gain 5 pounds of weight a month? Should I gain 10 pounds a month, 4 pounds a month, 3 pounds a month, is absurd. And that tells me most people are not bulking properly. That is a massive surplus, considering the average person is probably high 100s in the pounds. That's an enormous surplus. There's no way you're going to be able to have a productive long-term bulk that's sustainable at that rate. My general guidelines are going to be, for most beginners that are relatively lean, aim to gain 2 pounds a month. For most intermediate lifters, aim for that 1.5 pounds. For most late intermediates to advanced lifters, a pound or even a tad less per month is actually a really sustainable way to be in a decent little surplus and actually build muscle. And you don't have to worry about cutting nearly as often because your bulk can go for so insanely long. So as long as you do it properly, that's kind of the secret. And that's why some of these guys that do quote unquote permabulk can do it properly and get jacked and basically just ride that wave of momentum that they get from that little surplus that goes into their training and builds their muscle. And it's just this cycle of momentum that gets them huge. And I think that's something I've done a pretty good job of in my training career, is actually bulking properly and having a bit of a game plan when it comes to that. And with all that being said, that's my pitch for bear mode. That's my pitch for being a little bit more bulked up as a natural. I think it just looks better too, especially in day-to-day life. You don't see the behind the scenes of these influencers, these guys that look incredible when they have a pump and the crazy lighting and they're super lean. They shrink when they're out of the gym and they put a shirt back on. I'm telling you guys, it's like they have that physique because it makes them look good and you get attracted to that goal physique, but you don't realize that it's honestly kind of fake. So I'll always be a proponent of being a little bit more bulked up. I would so much rather look good 23 hours a day outside of the gym than look good in the gym for 1 hour a day with a pump so I can post things on my Instagram. So that's pretty much all I got to say. Try bear mode, really assess what you're in the gym for. Do you want to build muscle, or are you holding yourself back because you want to be shredded just because other people are and you don't see through the lies and the BS of the fitness industry? So with that said, that's all I got. I'll see you guys in the next one for a video that might include some topics on how to find your ideal volume, but we shall see.